Hi there, this is Peter Lermont, VMware TME out of Sunnyvale. Today I'm going to show you NetApp quality of service and data ONTAP, managing some IOmeter workloads in two VMs. I'm going to start off by opening up my two virtual machines, IOmeter 1 and IOmeter 2. And as you can see in here, I have IOmeter. Let's start that up on both of them. Start it up, center it up. You already have a predefined workload. I go to the results display and start it. And open up the speedometer. Same on the second screen, start, and speedometer. Now you can see these two VMs are pushing 80 to 90 to 100 megabytes per second is what's being measured. I'll open up a screen to my cluster. We can start off by having a look at what the policies are. You see a couple policies there for 100 megabytes a second. You can also abbreviate this too, as with any other cluster data ONTAP commands. It does command completion as well as unique abbreviations. No problem there. So first step is to create a policy group that can apply to my virtual machine. So I'm going to create a policy group called VM1 for my vServer where the VMs are living. The maximum throughput of 20 megabytes a second for this example. The next step is to actually set that policy on an object. To start with, we're going to set it on a virtual machine. We do that by giving the full path within the volume to the VMDK file, the -flat.vmdk in this example. So we apply the VM1 policy we just created to that file in data store DS1 on my vServer. And within a couple seconds, you look at VM1 on the side, you'll see that the performance drops down or the throughput drops down to that limited by the QOS policy. I can do the same thing for the second VM, almost the same command, but you'll notice that the file names here I've changed to IOmeter 2, which is the path to the second VM DK. I'm applying the same policy to it. Watch what happens. After a couple seconds, the performance of the VM drops. Now notice that the throughput of the two VMs together totals about 20 megabytes a second. Remember, my policy is set to 20 megabytes per second. There are two workloads that are sharing that policy. Both VMs are using the same policy, and they share that combined throughput. If I want a different policy or different throughput for each VM, or to have them each have the 20 megabytes per second, I need a separate policy for each VM. So let's create a second policy, and then I can apply it. And after a few seconds, you'll see the two VMs settle down at their new throughput, each with their own policy at 20 megabytes per second. Now I can clear these policies by setting the policy to none. None is a special keyword, it's not an actual policy. Clear the policy, let both VMs run full tilt. And now I can apply a volume policy. I've now set the policy in the volume. And again, once the VMs settle down to their new throughput, you'll see that the total of the two VMs equals what the policy was set for the volume. Let's clear that back out. Notice that after each exercise here, we clear out the policy by setting it to none. The reason for that is that there's no nesting. You can't have a VM level policy as well as a VSM or volume policy at the same time. And finally, we'll set a policy on the VSM itself. Of course, the syntax is still vServer. I've set a 100 megabyte policy. If you watch the VMs, they tend to sit around 50 megabytes or so each, and every once in a while they drop down. The reason for that is that there are other workloads running on this vServer. The entire vServer and all of its workloads, all of its VMs, any applications that are in there are now sharing a 100 megabyte per second policy. As other VMs that you don't see here kick in and start doing their workloads, you'll see the performance of the two VMs that we're watching actually drop. And as the other VMs calm down or stop doing any I/O, you'll see it pick back up on these two VMs. And now a prototype of the vSphere web client with a virtual storage console plugin. Basically, get to any screen where you can see the virtual machines, hosts and clusters, for example. Right-click the VM. At the bottom, NetApp VSC. the bottom of that, you'll see set quality of service. This dialog lets you pick IOPS or gigabytes a second, plug in the value, and then select the units. Hit OK. Watch the VMs on the right, and you'll see one of them drop.